Hi, I'm Sasha Pieterse. Thank you for joining me on my Women in the Nude podcast, where we bear it all except for our bodies. We'll leave that to your imagination. I am so excited to have Violetta Benson here with me. She is such a badass. And if you don't know her, I don't know why you wouldn't know her, but if you don't know her, she has a podcast, Almost Adulting, and it's one of my favorites ever. But also, I don't even know what you want to call Daddy Issues. It's like more than a meme account. It's great advice. It's comedy. It's everything. I am obsessed with it. So if you don't know her from there, maybe you just know her from her hot body.
Porn. I'm kidding. No, I don't do porn. It's a bad joke now.
Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I feel like 5 years ago I can make that joke. I used to always make that joke. They'd be like, "You look familiar," and I'm like, "You saw me on Pornhub." And people would get awkward. But now if I say that, they're like, "Yeah, OnlyFans," and I'll be like, "No, I was joking. I don't have an OnlyFans."
It
Never
is
mind.
different now. I wish I could sell my feet. I would do that in a heartbeat.
Yeah, me too. But oh no, people would probably pay me to remove the photos because my feet are so ugly. I would make money by people having me delete them. I'd be like, "You're gonna look at this unless you pay me $100 to remove it."
I mean, I doubt it, but yeah, feet are weird. I don't get why. I don't get the foot fetish thing. I really, I'm not about that. But to each their own. I just,
Yeah, I don't get it either, but I have ugly feet. Sorry.
whatever. I just want to say, like before we really start, that um, one of the reasons, not just because I like you as a person, but one of the reasons that I wanted to have you on is because you're actually a big inspiration for this podcast. I've spent my whole life watching my P's and Q's and making sure that I say the right things or don't say certain things. And I feel like I've had guy friends all my life, except for my really close best friend. And as I got older as a woman, I wanted a bigger community to just say whatever I wanted to say that I can't say to everybody else in my life. So when I came across Daddy Issues and just you in general, I was like, this girl is fucking awesome. I love what she says. I love
Oh,
how
nice.
authentic she is. And yeah, you and people like you are just so good, I feel like, for women. So thank you for that.
That is so nice of you to say. Thank you. I don't know what to say back. That's so sweet. I genuinely think I when people tell me I'm opinionated or I say what other people are thinking, it always comes as a shock because I don't realize that I'm saying things other people hold back from saying, like actually hold back so much from saying. So that's what's so funny. You know what
For
I
sure.
mean? But I was gonna make a joke when you were talking at first, but then I was like, it's not a good joke. I was like, when you said I can finally speak up or whatever. I was want to make a joke. Well, the high school you went to, I mean, it was so terrible. You had so many murders and all this drama in your high school and the bullying.
Uh,
But then it would have been
I mean,
silly.
I love that. Go for it. I mean, that was kind of my high school, to be fair. I was homeschooled, and yeah, like
Right.
that was. I grew up in that world, comically.
No, I mean, pretty alive. I mean, that was so relatable to me. I was like, that's literally my high school. I'm like, did we go to the same school? Because same. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
those text messages, those runs in the woods in heels. I bet. Yeah, yeah. Weekend
Yeah.
activities for sure. Who cares about the mall? Let's go in the woods.
Yeah. Let's solve a
Yeah,
murder. Yeah.
no
Yeah.
biggie.
So.
Well, thank you. So that was my big thing. Was that I have to start off. I'm obsessed with you, but um, yeah. As far as you go, like you are doing everything. How does it feel to be you in 2023? That sounds so weird.
How does it feel to be me in 2023? I really appreciate everything you just said. It's always a nice reminder about yourself when someone reminds you who you are, what you do, because I think a lot of times we are our worst critics and we happen to be the worst narrators of our own
So
stories
true.
because we create our own realities constantly. And sometimes if I'm in a bad mood, I'm going to create a very terrible reality. Not that I'm in a bad mood right now, but I think a lot of times we forget just in general how much we achieved, and instead we're constantly just striving for more and looking at other people. So I think today, yesterday and today, this whole week I've been just super busy, so I've just been more in the mode of just getting things done and not really taking a second to appreciate where I'm at, whether just having a roof over my head or having a cat I'm obsessed with, or people that, like, my family still being around and things like that. So um I think I was more just sitting and thinking about the things I was lacking this morning. So I think it's really nice right now with us starting this podcast and you kind of making your comments. That's sweet because it's a good reminder for me, like, oh, okay, yeah, I have achieved enough, or it is cool that somebody from the outside looked at what I'm doing and that inspired them, or even 1%, even if it's 1% inspiration to start their own podcast. Like, that's so heartfelt and amazing, and that makes me feel really good. So thank
Yeah, of
you.
course. Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Yeah, it's I need a reminder a lot. And my husband's great at that, and my kid, is awesome at that too, and he doesn't even know. But yeah, you social media, you got constant reminders of how great or how terrible you are. And yeah,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, you're an inspiration. I'm at a place where I'm 2023 trying to kind of just make sure that I'm on the right track and be proactive about the things that I want. I feel like for so long I've kind of just I've I'm such a hard worker. I have a lot of passions and I go for things, but there is a part of me that just kind of waits to see what happens instead of making it happen. And I'm at that place now where I'm making shit happen, which feels really good. It feels really good to be proactive because I am the biggest procrastinator on the planet.
I think all of us are probably procrastinators. And also I think with times they've changed and there's
Hmm.
information, so much information at our fingertips, and we are living in a life that's more comfortable than in the past. I mean, yes, there was a pandemic and all that, but I mean, compared to the 30s, now we're living
For sure.
longer than in the past, and we have more time to sit around and to think about things like, am I feeling happy today or am I sad? What am I experiencing? Am I fully like about happiness, or what else do I want in my life? And I think in a weird way it's making a lot of people more depressed or question more things, because here's an example. This is, I don't know why I'm bringing this up, but there was this research that I read about years ago, and the research was about depression and mental health. And they did a research between a poor neighborhood and a rich neighborhood, and what they found was there were more depressed people in the rich neighborhood. And does that mean that in the poor neighborhood people are just less depressed, they just love their life a lot? No, it meant that in the rich neighborhoods people have more time to sit around and to think, I don't have what this person on social media has, or I woke up today and I feel 8 out of 10 happy. So maybe something's wrong with me. Should I call a therapist? Maybe my life coach, maybe my yoga instructor. So they had more time to sit around and think about their life. In the poor neighborhoods, they weren't getting diagnosed with depression or feeling depressed or anything like that, because they didn't have time to sit to think about their feelings. They had to figure out how to feed their families. They had to figure out how to make ends meet. They had to figure out how to
Hmm.
survive. So they were just moving with life. So I think a lot of times we don't realize how privileged we are with the fact that we're even able to sit around and think about how we feel, or about yesterday, or how this person looked at me, or I'll do this thing tomorrow, or maybe next month, next week. It just, all these things, I think we're too much in our heads, and I think we're all victims of that
Yeah,
for
that
sure.
makes total sense. I completely agree with that. It is wild. It's wild the day and age that we're living in. And then also as like a mother thinking about what my son is going to have access to is crazy. But yeah, keeping your mind stimulated on things that actually matter versus all the shit that we can go through now, and what we should
I
prioritize.
think you are I think you are exactly where you're meant to be. And I think we need to give ourselves some grace and be easier on ourselves. So even constantly saying, oh, I'm procrastinating, it's because I'm a procrastinator, it's because I do this. No, it's because you needed to take time. Because if every day you worked really hard and you were 100%, then how would you be able to appreciate those days? You have to have those days of leisure and resting and working on yourself in order to have enough the energy and the perseverance to then the next day to give 100. You can't be at 100 every
It's
day.
true.
So I think we just need to be kinder to ourselves when we speak to
Yeah.
ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of being kinder, um, do you feel like you have reached a place where you have the ability to take that second to stop yourself when you're not being kind to yourself? Do you have that like control of being like, you know what, fuck, I just why am I being so mean to myself today? Let me get out of this. Or do you feel like it's like you get into like a hole for a couple days and got to dig yourself out? Does that make sense?
Yes. I think I have learned how to be kinder to myself over the years. I think I've definitely gotten better at it. I don't knock myself down as much. I've also learned to accept the fact that it's okay when I do want to dig a hole and feel sorry for myself, or when I do want to just cry it out, because in the past, being such a perfectionist or doing my best to empower others, I felt almost that I had to constantly set an example. So I had
Mm-hmm.
to constantly be happy and I had to constantly get over things fast because I'm giving others advice on how to be better. And I wasn't giving myself grace. And then my mom taught me that if I don't take breaks with my body and my mental health and with myself, then my body will take those breaks for
Mm-hmm.
me. And it's going to be at the most inconvenient times. So that, and she was correct because with me personally, I'm so good at bottling, or used to be much better at this. I mean, in a bad way, that I would bottle my emotions so much and just push them to the
Mm-hmm.
side and just assume that I'll be okay, until eventually my body would physically get sick because my immune system will go low. Then I would get sick because I live with my cat who I'm allergic to. So if I don't take care of my body, if I genuinely don't take care of my immune system, I will get sick because my cat is already putting me on edge, my whole body. So and then I get sick physically, and that's when I go, oh okay, I'm hitting a wall, or I'm feeling depressed. Which, by the way, there's a difference between feeling sad, feeling depressed, and being
Mm-hmm.
depressed. So then that's when I check in with myself, but that's already too late. And I in the past before that, I would literally already be in my depression where I haven't showered for a week, and finally, and everyone's calling me, I'm not answering, and then I check in with myself. So it slowly started to get better with that. So now I think I give myself grace in a way that, okay, I'm really sad about this. I'm just gonna cry it out. You know what? I just feel like shit. Fuck it, V. Just do it. Just let yourself feel like shit. I allow myself to feel like shit, but then I talk to myself and I say, okay, enough. Even though I give myself that time, I also don't take a whole week now to really be cruel to myself. If I want to be cruel to myself and talk badly to myself, I give myself an hour or a night. But then I say, okay, enough. And that's over the process of obviously going to therapy, doing research about these things, interviewing amazing therapists and very knowledgeable people who taught me so much. And I do my, there's so much knowledge that comes our way, and it's up to us to listen. And I've done my best to try to listen. And this one advice a while back on my podcast, I think last year, really stuck with me. And this woman, she said, you just have to remember that you always have a choice. So every day you wake up and you check in with yourself and you ask, um, is this working for me? That's what she said. Is this working for me? And every day you ask yourself. So if you're okay with feeling sorry for yourself or being in a bad situation, but not doing anything to get out of it because you've gotten used to this familiar feeling now in misery that you don't know what it's like to be happy, then, it's working for you. But if one day you wake up, which just happened to me recently, I stopped talking to a guy and I first tried to be his friend. That I always do that for a week. And then I'm like, okay, why are you doing this to yourself? And then I'm fantasizing about it, and then it doesn't make me feel good. And then finally, it's that morning when I wake up and I say, is this working for me? No. okay, then what are we going to do? And then I finally make that change, because it's not just your physical change, it's your mentality
Yeah.
as well. You have to, your energy, where you're putting your energy, you
Yeah,
know?
absolutely.
So I don't remember what the question was, but yeah, that's how I'm kinder to myself.
That totally.
I have to force myself. And then I talk to myself nicely too. Like, it's really sweet. And I think everyone should do it. And I don't care if it's cringe. You don't have to tell other people you're doing it. And you don't do it so you can film yourself and tell people what you're doing. I never understand where people are crying a lot and then posting themselves crying, like pretty
Mm-hmm.
crying. And like, look, everyone cries. You don't have to share everything. It's okay. Like, relax. So, what I've done even recently when I felt bad about myself, I talked really badly to myself. I'm just like, okay, I'm pathetic. You're such a loser, blah, blah. And then I'm like, okay, stop, stop. And then I start to feel sorry for myself. So I was just like, I gave myself a little cuddle, like a little hug. And I was like, you're so sweet. Oh, I like you. And I changed my perspective and I said, that's so sweet that you're still able to open your heart up.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sweet that you still showed someone what love is. Maybe they really needed it, even though they didn't reciprocate. Maybe they needed it. So that's so sweet that you're able to still, give yourself to someone. That's so sweet that you're not jaded from this. That's so sweet that you're able to pick yourself up. I'm so proud of you. So just, it's crazy, but first you say it and you feel sarcastic and it feels like a joke, but then you start feeling it and it feels good and you start to believe it. It's even those the research that they've done with plants before, where they water two plants and one of them they say kind words to, and the other one they say negative words to, and the plant with the negative words dies faster.
Interesting.
So it's like watering. I'm watering myself.
Right. Yeah.
And it feels, even me speaking about this right now made me love myself a little more, reminding myself a little more how lovable I am. Like, it's
It's
cute.
very cute. I really like that. Yeah, positive affirmation for sure. You just had somebody on your podcast, and I'm forgetting her name. But she said that she is basically engaged to herself. Yeah, so she like
Yes.
got a tattoo, engagement ring tattoo. And I think that's kind of brilliant, as maybe not the tattoo for everybody, but the metaphor that you need to be committed to yourself, to basically your own growth.
I think I like that a lot. But there's something that I've been thinking about lately that actually just reminded me that I should write down to talk about in the future. I think sometimes we make our identity one thing.
Mm,
And I think a lot of coaches on the internet, even including myself, we make something our identity, whether it's our politics or giving dating advice, or, okay, I'm married, so my whole identity now is my marriage, or I have a child, my whole identity is my child. I'm single, so my whole identity is being single. And then it's this weird thing of having to prove to everyone every single day how happy you are. And I think it's unrealistic. I think it's okay to also show that, of course, I love myself, but I still hate myself on
yeah.
some days. Like, so would I commit to myself in that extreme way? I personally wouldn't. I respect that she did that. Do I think it's that almost feels of a way to kind of, what is that? I don't know the English word, where it's fake
Mm.
showing, where you're
Like
going too
projecting
far out of your
almost.
way. Not projecting, it's you're going out of your way to try to prove something. Like, who are you proving this to?
Yeah, it's trying too hard.
And
Yeah.
or it's like those couples are always posting each other on Instagram and then they break up the following month and they're always like, even though you shit in the bed and I always have to I have to wipe that off. I love you, Brandon. And even though I don't hear from you for days, you have my heart. And it's like, okay, who are you proving this
Yeah.
to? Like, say this to your therapist, not on your Instagram
Yeah,
caption.
absolutely.
Like, it sounds like you guys have issues. So I think we all need to chill
Yeah.
out and just admit that sometimes it sucks, whatever our identity is. Your identity doesn't have to be
Yeah.
one thing, it can be a lot of things. And sometimes life is not 100% and it's not great. So, yeah, I'm committed to myself, but do I always love being single? No, of course, I would love to find a partner, but I'm also glad that I didn't end up with my partner that I was with. Most people don't realize I was with my partner most of my
Mm,
20s. That's why I'm now single in my 30s, because I spent most of my 20s with someone that wasn't right for me.
yeah.
So I'm only getting to learn now about myself. Maybe I'm projecting.
No. You're you're definitely not. No, you're I think your outlook is good. Um but okay, so this brings me to dating apps because I I had briefly told you I have never been on a dating app because when my now husband and I started dating, it wasn't really that popular. I wasn't like I didn't go on a dating app because I was interested in him and other people and what have you. So like I didn't physically go on a dating app, and then we started dating, and the rest is history for us. But it's not that I feel like it's not that I feel like I missed out on it because obviously I'm happy with my husband.
You can still get on
Right.
it.
Technically, yes. Yeah, for sure. I could. Um, but there's this part of me that like excuse me, felt like, man, this seems like a game. It's kind of fun. I want to experience it through my friends, which is kind of fucked up. But I wanted to ask, do you think that a dating app or dating apps in general, do you think that they are more helpful or more harmful?
I think I wouldn't use the word harmful, because I think, again, the same way with information, we have so much at our fingertips. I think it's more up to us what we do with it. But I do think dating apps have made people
Mm-hmm.
lazier. Me being a victim, part of me being part of it as well. So when I'm saying the things that I'm saying, it's not without criticism to myself. I'm definitely part of it as well. I think it's made us lazier in a sense that you don't have to leave your house now to find someone. You don't have to put an effort to get to know someone. Okay, I don't like how they said hi. Swipe
Mm-hmm.
left. Never mind. Or the person I'm talking to, I'm dating, it's not working out with them. So, you know what? Get back on dating apps. I'll find someone new. There's always someone around the corner. So you don't even try to make it work with whoever you're dating. Or some people are in dating apps, which, the whole definition of the dating app, it's in the
To
title,
date.
dating. But people go on dating apps with no intention to date. They just want that
Mm-hmm.
attention. So then there's a lot of people who are there for the attention, or a lot of people who actually don't know what they were looking for. And yeah, for some people, just chatting to someone is more than enough for them. They don't actually want to meet up with you. They just needed the validation that they can go on with their day. So I think in a weird way, it's made us more closed off. It's kind of the same way where now with the internet, there's more information now more than ever, which made things worse, because now there's all the
Mm-hmm.
misinformation out there. And even though we could figure things out on our own, supposedly now it's harmful for us when someone else tells us information, even though we could just Google it. I don't know. I just think everything is good in
Yeah.
moderation. And I think a lot of things now are post moderation. But again, it's how we use it. It's easy for me and my friends who are Los Angeles to complain about LA dating sucks. Well, maybe we suck. Maybe we're part of the problem. Maybe I'm also not giving people a chance. You know, maybe it's not where I live. Maybe it's me. So,
I've told girlfriends before that their parameters suck. Like all their settings that they put on, like they've made it so that like maybe 0.5% of anybody could actually fit in the boundaries that they've set, instead of just like you would be meeting somebody naturally. You have no idea what they believe, or how tall they actually are, or what they do for a living. There's all these different things that are requirements now, instead of it being fairly natural. And I just wonder if that's also part of it.
I also think women these days, and I'm not trying to speak for all women, but it feels like if I could speak for all women, I would say most women I know, including myself, the way we've lowered our standards has been we've lowered our standards so low at this point that we're practically in hell. Like we are in hell now. So that's how low the standards are. And still, it seems that sometimes, so I don't think alive, I feel that women are not really as much the issue. Sounds bad. But I think I've noticed the women really have lowered their standards and still the guys are dating. They're like, yeah, I mean, I'm 40, but I still live at home, but like I still don't know what I'm looking for. I'm still finding myself. And you're like, you're 40. You're like,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm finding myself. Maybe when I'm 70, I'll be ready to have children. I don't know. Maybe. I'm so young. I don't know. So I think that's the kind of the pool that we have with a lot of the men. You're like, okay, great. You figure yourself out, Bob. Like, call me when you're 65. Maybe then you'll find yourself.
I would just like to point out that I love the fake names that you have for guys, like Brandon and Bob. So
I
good.
don't know.
Yeah, one of my girlfriends is like, he has to be over, 6 foot, and I'm like, but you're 5'3". Now I'm saying that
Yeah.
as my husband's 6'5". Like I don't want short
Oh,
guys either. So I'm a hypocrite. Uh,
I like short
well, there
guys.
you go.
I'm at this point that I'm like, just have a
Yeah.
job. Like, just be passionate about something else except me, but don't forget that I exist. And even that, my standards are apparently too high.
I find it so it's terrible because it's like a social experiment. Like I find it fascinating at your expense, and I apologize for that.
But I do think it is interesting that with how things have progressed, people are, even though it seems like everyone's so sexually active, research shows people are less sexually active than they've ever been in years. People are having babies later on in
Mm-hmm.
life, and a lot of people are saying, oh, it's because we learned we don't want to, but it's also because they're meeting their person later on in life. And I think, again, it seems that there's constant, it feels to me at least, that there's constant division between men and women. So again, we have all this information at our fingertips, and it's somehow making people lonelier and more further apart from each other, and constant, being scared to be vulnerable. All that stuff I find very interesting.
Yeah.
Because oh fuck, I forgot what I was gonna say. I'll come back to
Yeah,
me.
no, just like the fact that it's kind of like a social experiment. But I think you're right. All this information that we have, um, too much time in our hands on in some ways. Our
Oh, I
Go
remember
for
now.
it.
What bothers me though is that things have changed now with women being more independent, and I think that has been a struggle with some men. I think maybe they don't feel as useful, whatever it is, versus even though the women are very vocal,
Mm-hmm.
like just I just need you emotionally more than financially. And they're like, I just don't know what you want emotionally. Okay, but like I don't understand you because I can't help you financially, like emotionally, like my
Yes.
heart. you know? So I think, and I find it interesting that everyone now is getting together older, but it seems that the misogyny and the terms are always sticking around, where if a man is in their 30s, in their 40s, 50s, whatever, they're single, they're a bachelor. If a woman is in her late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s and she's single, she can't keep a
Mm-hmm.
man. Like, isn't that so interesting, the terms? Versus, as much as I was making jokes about the standards being low, obviously I was just making jokes because I do comedy too. I just need to tune it up a little. But us women, we've raised our standards because with women, if you're educated, then you're looking for someone educated. If you have a good job, you're looking for someone on that same level as well. I mean, whatever it is that you're looking for. So a lot of women now, they raise their standards. They don't need to depend on a man. They just want a man. So now they're kind of looking around and they're just not settling for anything. And if someone treats them poorly, with all the information that they have out there and the good coaches, they learn to walk away. They learn to love themselves. And I think that's another probably reason why women are settling older. But I do think that's really interesting. Sometimes the pressure. Sometimes I feel pressure. What is that noise?
No, it's my dog. Don't worry about my. She's yeah,
Oh,
my
sorry.
big ass Great
Oh,
Dane next to me is. Don't yeah, it's not you. Sorry.
oh. But sometimes I too feel pressure to settle down. Sometimes because of one random guy, Robert 432 from you know, Kentucky was like, you're going to be alone forever. And I'm like, shit, I should call my ex and just be with someone. So Robert will respect me. But like sometimes, I can't help but think like that.
Yeah.
But you got to remember your time will come and it's better if you just find. I mean, actually, I was talking about my friend Sarah. If you hit your 30s and you're single as a woman, then you ended up not a
Mm,
statistic because I think it's like over 50% get divorced in their
yeah.
20s. So we ended up good for us.
Totally. There's definitely something to respecting yourself enough to not settle, to make sure that it's the right decision for you. I have a lot of girlfriends that haven't found their person and are becoming more and more okay with that longer timeline. Especially with the expectation of having babies at a certain time or the pressure from your parents or society in general. But the standards thing, it's it's so important for your happiness, for your quality of life, for your eventual kids' future if you do want children. Um, I firmly believe that you need to be equals. This whole yeah.
Yeah, I agree. And of course, everyone's different. Some people are okay with a different type of marriage. I mean, my ex boyfriend, he made it very clear the type of marriage he was looking for. And the marriage he was looking for was a woman that stayed at well, he was Middle Eastern. I'm also Middle Eastern. A woman that stayed at home, took care of the babies. He gave her an allowance, a monthly allowance, and then she didn't ask him questions when he went away for the weekend to Vegas and does his own thing. She doesn't question him, she doesn't contact him. She lets him do his own thing, and that's a marriage because he's a provider. And obviously I struggled with the thought of that.
I should hope so.
Most are okay with it. But there's some women that are okay with it because it depends. Some women, their whole life, they want to have the babies and they love the
Right.
lifestyle. So they're okay with that. I mean, my parents, my mom was a housewife and my father was a provider, but she's also a very smart woman. And I got to know her much better as I've gotten older and understand so much more about her. I think we never stop learning about the people that we love. And I think you should always be curious about the people that you love, whether it's your family members or your partner. That's how you continue to grow good relationships, by always being curious about them, never thinking that you've learned everything about
Mhm.
them. And I got to learn, my mom taught me this one really interesting part. She said, if you want a man to love you for the rest of his life, make sure he depends on you. And she said in a way where it's even the little things that you do, they don't realize that they're dependent on you. But my dad can't go a day without my mom. My mom can survive without my dad, and my dad can't survive without my mom because he doesn't even know how to make his tea. And he doesn't
Mhm.
even know how to have a sandwich. And I know it sounds so silly. Okay, cool. So she cooks for him. For my dad, that's his
Right.
everything. So he like longs for my mother. He misses her if she's gone for a day. He's thinking about her. My mom has other friends. My dad has his best friend is my mom and no one else.
So I'm South African, I'm Dutch, and so we share that the immigrant situation. That I think it's also a big part of foreign families. My entire family is that way. But I knew that I did not want that for my marriage and for my partner. And I don't know if that's just more of like a modern day thing where, we have different ideals and different things that we want in a partner. But you know, my husband and I, we're very much equal with raising our son, with our jobs, with what we expect in our relationships. We have our strengths and our weaknesses, and obviously nothing's perfect, but that that equal in responsibility, maybe that's the word to use. So it's not that my parents aren't equal in their love and their what they want out of their marriage, but it is like it's different ideals. And um, I think women, like you were saying, more independent, more vocal. Adult women now, I feel like are just they're they're louder with their variety in their wish list. Because I think it was just a lot of like, it didn't matter. It didn't matter if we didn't love it or didn't agree with it. This is just kind of the role that we have to fill if we want to get married.
Yes, but growing up, obviously my account is daddy issues. So I grew up with daddy issues. So, as you know, but I always looked up to my dad because he didn't know I existed. And I was like, wow, what a cool guy. I want to get to know him. He's so cool. And my mom showed me so much love. And I was like, wow, she's so needy. She's so emotional. She's too soft. And then as I got older, I got to learn the strength of my mother and the weakness of my father, which I shared with my dad, where we didn't show our emotions. And I got to learn that's a weakness. And I got to learn everything about my mom, how strong she is. And my mother is so strong in the sense that, yes, they're dynamic, even though she has a master's degree and she was a teacher prior for them getting together. She took care of the children while my dad sailed away. I pretty much grew up on a ship growing up. Most people don't know that about me. So I was like a ship kid, whatever it's called. My dad would be away for 3 months at a time and then back home for a month. And my mom would always take care of the children. That was her job, and that's a full-time job. But it didn't mean that their dynamic was that she was below him because she was the home taker, home caterer.
The
I don't know
yeah,
the correct
the homemaker. Homemaker.
care.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
sure. That my mom is such a strong woman that when my father was kind of a player before my mom, and he dated a woman for 5 years, never planning on marrying her. They lived together, wasn't planning on marrying her. And I think maybe they finally broke up, and he met my mom, and he fell in love with her within 2 seconds. And he just knew she was the one for him because she was beautiful, and he knew he would have beautiful children with her. Literally, that was his thought process. And then my mother just left her ex-husband for
Mm.
cheating because my mom is that strong. He cheated on her. She was married to a tall, beautiful doctor. She found love letters and she left him. And he said, "You are 29 years old. You are damaged goods. You're a Jew in Russia, where no one likes Jews back then, or maybe now too, whatever." And he said, "Who's going to want to marry you? You're damaged goods. No one's going to want you." And she saved herself for this man.
Mm.
So she was her first. And she said, "I don't care. I'm going to leave." And she moved to a different city. And then that's where she met my father, and she knew this guy would be a good provider. So they both
Mm.
knew what they wanted from one another. It doesn't even feel like love, but she knew he would be a good provider and he would take care of her. And the funny part, how my parents met, was that this lady said, "I want to set you up with this beautiful, tall man over there." And my mom said, "You know what? I'm done dating good looking guys. How about his friend?" Which was my dad. And that's how they got together. My dad is shorter than my mom. And they got together. And my dad proposed to my mom after a month,
Wow.
1 month. And they were engaged. And as they lived together, my dad made a comment. He said, because all men do this. By the way, girls, all men do this. He said, "I don't know, maybe I'm having second thoughts. Maybe we're moving too fast. Maybe we shouldn't be doing this." And as he turns around, he saw my mother packing her bag. And he's like, "What are you doing?" And she goes, "Well, you said you don't know what you're doing. So I'm not going to say where I'm not wanted. I know better than to do that. So I'm going to go and you can figure out what you're looking for, but I don't need to be here for that." And my dad freaked out. He's like, "No, I'm so sorry. Please stay. I love you." And he never did that again. And that's the strength of my mother. That's her knowing exactly who she is. And that took me years to learn about myself. Only in my 30s that I learned. And I still struggle with that sometimes, where you never beg anyone, not just a man, you never beg anyone to want to be around you, or you never beg, you never stay where you're not wanted. My mom always taught me that. And the fact that she was strong enough to just about to leave versus being arguing with him or begging him to love her just shows how strong she is. So yes, the dynamic where my father's a provider, my mom's the homemaker, but I got to learn that sometimes you don't have to be the loudest in the room to be the strongest in the room and to be the boss. My mom is the boss in the family. I just never knew that before. When I was younger, I thought it was my dad. He's not. It's my mom.
I want to meet her. she's so,
She's so honestly
she
cool.
sounds amazing.
And yet she's so soft and loving. She's one of the most loving people I've ever met in my life. And she, based on her life, she had every reason to not be a loving person. And then my dad being, so hard headed growing up with him, even though he's changed now, it just shows you how two people were given really bad lives growing up and they both had a choice what to do with their lives. And my dad chose to be colder and to be a bit heartless to protect himself. And my mom chose to still be such a loving person to the universe while still respecting herself. And to me, that's so beautiful. I never knew how much I could still learn from my mother as an adult. It's cool when you get to grow older and you get to see your parents in a different
Yeah.
light.
No, it's true. Um, there's this interesting movement through life when you realize that your parents aren't right about everything. And it's that reset and getting to know them. And I love what you said about always being curious about the people that you love. And that is true. And we're always evolving. We're always changing. And I think a lot of people get upset when people change because you see people a certain way and you don't like it when they grow into something else because you don't understand it. And if you're not going to take that time to understand why they're changing, what direction they're going in, good or bad, it it can upset the whole apple cart, and it can upset your life. And I think that it also takes a lot of courage to get to know your parents in that way. And I struggle with that in ways too. Like I said, I love my parents, and I had a great childhood. But life is complicated, and it, it's building a different type of relationship in your adulthood. Some people have an easier time with that. Some people don't. Um, and I I love hearing you and that story, and that you've been um, able to form that and just get to know them in that way. What is your relationship like with your dad now?
I believe we're close, but I think everyone has different definitions of close. I don't have to talk to my dad every day to be close to him, but as Russian perspective, we're close. I love him so much and he loves me, and I think about sometimes how much I love him. I'm probably, sometimes it takes me a few days to respond to his texts. I don't know why I still get like that. It's really random, weird anxiety that I still get. And sometimes I get super excited when my dad says out loud that he loves me. I suddenly, it's like my little inner child that wants to cry. And I'm like, why am I acting like this? I'm an adult. I'm a woman. I shouldn't be getting excited by it's this little excitement that because your father is the first man in your life, so he either breaks your heart or shows you what love is. And I think a lot of times people don't realize that your father can subconsciously be the first man in your life to break your
Yep.
heart
Or
or
both.
learn how to heal it. Yeah, it's not his fault. Obviously, I've learned. I'm a very I believe that everyone is doing their best, and I like to give people. I'm so thankful that I didn't hold my past or the way I grew up against anyone in my family. My parents always taught me that all we have is our family. Since we moved to the US, I only have my immediate family
Same.
here, which is my mom, my dad, and my sister. So, and my parents always taught me very cold Russian lessons. Like, in a sense, they would tell me things like my dad would tell me things like, when people tell you they love you, they're lying to you. They don't mean it because they only love you as long as they need something from you. And he would teach me that, and I used to think it was cruel, but he would teach me that because my heart is too open, I'm too giving. And then people would let me down. You watch
Mm.
me get let down, and then he would say, if you're gonna be this stupid, then you're gonna have tough, you need to have tough skin. And I was like, shit, okay, that's really good advice. If you're gonna be stupid, then you're gonna need tough skin. Like, right. Thanks, Dad. Um, but a lot of his advice that when I look back that I thought was mean or silly, was actually very true. He
Yeah.
wasn't wrong. Um, but yeah, I'm thankful that I got to repair my relationship with my parents, especially with my father. I got to change the whole generational trauma, whatever pattern or whatever that thing is called. I hope that even if you can inspire one or two people to do the same with their families, but it has to start with you, which is the hardest part because we think, well, why should I do it? I'm the child. But you're not anymore. And your parents, now you get to learn that your parents are not superheroes and your parents are human and they didn't know any better. And maybe it's your turn. Like maybe that's what you're meant to do. But I think we always think we have so much time
Hmm.
and we don't. Because if you really think about it, you have a last moment with every single person in your life and you just don't know it. There's every single person in your life, there you have the last time you will ever see them, and you never realize when it's going to be the last time. And I'm not saying just in a passing away type of way, but it's just also you fight with someone or they move to a different country and you didn't realize that the last time you saw them was going to be the last time. So when you really put things in perspective where you don't, you realize I really don't have that much time. And that's kind of one of the reasons when I made the decision to change the dynamic with my father, I just realized how many more years do I have with my dad? So, am I going to continue? Now I went 24 years without my father and I saying I love you or hugging each other. Is this enough for me or am I ready to try to change it? And at least, even if it doesn't happen, at least I'm going to know I tried and I'm going to learn from it. So, I had to force myself to start saying I love you to my father and to try to hug him and things like that. And it took a while before he started being okay with it. So I had to accept that I was going to be rejected by my dad over and over again until he was going to feel comfortable around me. But it was in a way where I had to be so comfortable in my own skin. And I had to tell myself, I know he loves me. He's showing me love in different ways, just not the way I want him to show me. But I'm going to teach him how I want to be loved. And I think that's one thing we miss all
Hmm.
the time with people. And I've learned this even recently. When I had Jay Shetty on my podcast, we had a really good conversation. It's so true where sometimes we expect people to love us the way we want to be loved, but we don't say it to them because we're afraid of being rejected or being vulnerable. But why not just try to tell people how you want to be loved? And it doesn't need to just be romantic partners. It can be your platonic relationships as well, like your friends, your siblings, your parents. If you just ask people how you want to be loved, then you give them a choice. And now they have a choice if they want to reciprocate. So my father showed me his love by putting a roof over my head and supporting me financially in the best way he could, even though I grew up poor. He still did his best because when he grew up, his dad was a cheater, an alcoholic, and he spent all their money on other women. And he left them so dirt poor. And then he was sent to jail for being a Jew with the business in Russia. And then he got beat up to death
Holy shit.
by the prison guards, when my dad was like 17, 18. So my dad was left with no father and also no money. And then people came to their home and they're like, your dad owes us money. And my dad was like, in Russia during communism, the way you would live is you don't even have your own apartment. You share with other people, and you don't just share an apartment with other people, you share a room with other people. So each family gets a corner in a room. So you get to share like one room with four families, and you each get your own corner. So my dad was like, look, like we have nothing. I don't know what he owes. So he then decided that he will always take care of his family. So he took care of his mom, and then he took care of us. But as a child, obviously, I don't know that that's his way of showing me love. And my love, I needed to be hugged, words of affirmation. And the cool thing that you get to learn as you get older is that as an adult, your love languages, the way you want to be loved, is the way you didn't get love as a child. That becomes your love language. So my love language is touch and words of affirmation. So I realized my dad loved me all these years. He just didn't show it to me the way I wanted to be loved. So I'm going to start practicing with him how I want to be loved till he does it back. So I showed him how I want to be loved. So we'd be on the phone and talking about whatever, and then I'll be like, wait, dad, before you hang up, что means what in Russian? Be like, I love you, and just hang ups. Okay. A few more times, do it a few times, then finally, a few times later, I love you. Silence. Hangs up. Okay. Wow. He waited this time. You know, a few more times. I love you. Me too. Click. Okay. A few more times, and then eventually you get that I love you too. You know, you do the hug. It's awkward. It's uncomfortable. We don't touch each other. This is weird. But no, just do it. Okay. Now I kiss my dad on the cheek. Sometimes I kiss him on the mouth just to fuck around. I kiss both of my parents on the mouth sometimes. But you know, it wasn't okay. I want I want to change the dynamic. Tomorrow it changed. It was like a year process. I'm so sorry for going on a
No, I love it.
tangent. I it, it's I get so excited about a topic and then I just like dive into it because it reminds me of all those happy moments, and it makes me feel proud, or you know, makes me think of my parents in this moment, and I love them. Yeah.
I think it's powerful, and that's exactly what this is for. I was literally telling my husband about, I don't know, a month ago now, how important that is, how crazy it is that we expect people to just know how to love us, and that it should be normalized. It should be something that is, or maybe wouldn't it be nice if everybody knew that they just had to tell people in their life, hey, I need this from you. And like you said, it's a choice. Either somebody can is willing or can do that for you, or they can't, and how much faster that process would actually be to find out if that person is for you or not, whether that be a friendship or
It's
or
yeah.
anything. And obviously life's not that simple, and we're so complicated and complex, and it changes, and maybe we think we need something and we actually don't. We need something different. And but it's worth it. And I love what you're saying about your family, and how much work it takes, because it's never a quick fix. And especially with family, with or just people in general that you have so much history with, it it just like it brings up so many different types of emotions, and you do have to set a lot of your stuff, your own stuff, aside if you want something out of that relationship. You know, a lot of people decide to not do that, and I think that that's also something important to say, is that everybody's situation is different, and it's it's not always healthy to have certain people in your life. And I think that is
Of
also something
course.
to like overcome, which I thankfully I've never had to deal with that in particular, but people close to me have. and and it's an interesting thing. It's like, and what, at what time, at what place do does family not get a pass? Do those childhood people in your life not get a pass? Does your partner not get a pass? and and ultimately I think that is a personal question for each person, and that is also where your mental health comes into play, because I feel like so many times we keep really toxic people in our life because we feel like, uh, we have to, or that, you know, it's expected of us, or we feel so badly for them if that relationship were to split. And you're how where does your mental health come into play to make sure that, you know, that you don't go off the deep end, that you're trying to keep yourself on track? And
Yeah.
where is that, where is it selfish and where is it not selfish? And is it, it's it's so complicated, and it's like every journey is different. um but I feel like it's just
Yeah.
so refreshing to see
I
somebody where it does work. You know what I mean?
It works for us, but okay. So here are my 2 cents on that. There are a lot of families out there, and for my friends, the people I spoke to, where there's nothing they can do to salvage the relationship that they have with their family, with one of their parents or both of their parents. It's too far. So of course, sometimes it does cross the line, and there's only so much you can try. You can't completely drown
Hmm.
yourself and, not care about yourself and your well-being in order to try to make it work with people who clearly don't want. But at first, you if there is a chance where you can make it work, I think you should try, because a lot of times us as humans, we move with so much of our
Yep.
egos,
Lots of pride.
and it's more about, well, what about that time that they did this and this? Okay, but what if you removed your ego and you just forgave? What if you were the bigger person? Well, why do I always have to be the bigger person? Well, do you care about this relationship or not? So you can try. And again, you can tell people how you want to be loved. And if enough times the other person lets you down, then you can say, okay, they don't value me the same way I value this relationship. Now I can decide what to do and to move away. But I think now, with all the information that we have, again, like I said, we have so much information, and for some reason we know even less, is that people overuse a lot of words, whether it's narcissistic, gaslighting, toxic. Now suddenly everyone's gaslighting. Am I gaslighting you, or do we have a miscommunication? And my reality is a little different from yours right now, because I'm understanding something completely differently. Maybe we should talk about it before you assume I'm gaslighting you. Or am I a narcissist, or am I just not into you? So all these words now people just throw around, and it's their way to be like, oh, my family's toxic. Why? Because your political views are different. That's why you want to never speak to your family again. And that's people who clearly then must get so much love from everyone around them that they can just throw a relationship so easily because they have one opposing view.
Right.
But again, it all depends of what really matters to you. Here's an example. I was talking to somebody I work with, and she talked about her mother, and she said, my mom is such a narcissist, and it's always about her, blah, blah, blah. I'm so envious of your relationship with your dad. I wish I had a relationship with her, but every time we talk, it's always about her. And I go, what do you want from her? And she goes, well, I just wish sometimes she would just tell me I'm doing great. She's always talking about herself. And I go, okay, so you wish she would tell you how great you are or how great you're doing. She goes, yeah, I need the words of I need validation. She just doesn't care. It's always about her. And I go, well, what do you do when she talks about herself? Do you tell her good job? Because obviously she just told me that's how she wants to be loved. And she goes, well, no, I'm a little resentful. So I purposely also look the other way, because it's like, if she's not going to congratulate me, I'm not going to congratulate her. And I said, okay, so who's winning here? And I go, what if you tried to love her the way you want to be loved? So if you're saying you're looking for validation, maybe your mom is also looking for validation. You guys are missing each other on that part. So what if next time she starts talking about herself, instead of ignoring it or putting it down because you're resentful, why don't you say, Mom, that's amazing. You're actually doing so well. Honestly, I'm so impressed with you. I'm so amazed. Wait, tell me more. I want to know more. She said, okay, that's right. I'll try it. And she tried it. And by the way, this is a woman who's in her late 30s with children, all that. It's not someone in their 20s. So I'm not giving this advice for, if someone wants to say, yeah, it must be easy when you're 20. No, this is someone nearing, like, they're 40 years old. And she said, I'll try it. She did it 3 times with her mom. And she called me and she said, holy shit, that things have changed with my mother. Because I told her, guess what's going to happen when you do that? She's going to ask about you. And guess what? Second, third call, after she said, Mom, you are blowing my mind. You are so great. Her mom said, thank you so much. Wait, baby, what about you? I mean, you're so successful. Can you tell me about your stuff? And she asked her, and she listened. And then she congratulated her daughter, like her daughter really wanted to hear. So again, sometimes if you just removed your ego and you showed someone how you want to be loved, or you were just kind to, like, I had a conflict one time with a guy I was dating. We had a miscommunication and we fought, and I was over it. And the next day I said, what if instead of fighting to fight, I fought with him to come to an agreement? So instead of attacking him or telling him, like, never speak to me again, I said, you know what? I was thinking about it. And yesterday, yeah, I was upset with you, but I wasn't thinking of where you were coming from, because you did have a very stressful day. So now that I think about it, I shouldn't have taken things so personally, because I'm sure you really didn't mean it. And then I just came on even stronger when you probably just needed a minute. It had nothing to do with me. It had to do with whatever you're going through. And my response was, holy shit, I wasn't expecting to hear that from you. No one ever says,
Right.
no woman ever says that to me. And now that I think about it, I should have spoken to you like that. No, you're right. I should have been kinder to you. And I should have still hung out with you. And I should have still, you see, I apologized first. And what happened? He then apologized back. So if you just remove your ego, all I'm saying is just try.
Better to try than not try. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I hope that helps.
I love how passionate you are. I feel like this is how I am with my friends. We get loud, we do this. And this is exactly what I wanted on the podcast because this is what makes me happy. These are the conversations that, I want everybody to kind of have and feel okay having.
I think I just feel everything. I think I'm such a logical person, but when I speak, I really do feel all my emotions. So everything I say with meaning. So I feel everything. And I really do mean everything I say. But also maybe it's because I'm by myself most of the time. So when I finally am speaking, it's a podcast. So
It's good. It's really good. And it's insightful. Like it always does feel like there is meaning there, even with the jokes. So I appreciate that. One, yeah,
thank you.
one thing I did want to ask about, since we do share this, is PCOS. Yeah. What
Yes.
was your journey like with that?
So I think a lot of women are discovering that they have
Mm-hmm.
PCOS or some other symptoms and other things. And I think a lot of times, I don't know why it is with whether it seems that for women in the medical world, we're very behind.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, in a sense where sometimes maybe we focus more on the physical pain and we don't focus on the emotional pain. Like it's not as important, even though it's our mental health. And a lot of times they put us on different medication to mask things. Like aside from, ADHD not really being or dyslexia, ADHD not really being diagnosed in women and other things to PCOS. I didn't know I had PCOS until now in my 30s. And it was by accident that I found out. But now looking back, there's so many moments that made sense. When I got on birth control when I was 17, it had to do with hormonal imbalance. I didn't know the word hormonal imbalance even had to do with PCOS. So then I was on birth control until last year, until I was, I think, 32, maybe the beginning of 33, because I've only not been on birth control for 9, 10 months. So I've been in birth control most of my life, not thinking of the effects of birth control, but it was regulating my hormones. One weird thing that happened when I got on birth control was that I lost weight. Again, I didn't think anything of it. It was weird that everyone else gets on birth control, they gain weight. I lost weight. I had no idea why. So when I got off birth control, here's the thing. A few years ago, I never connected this. A couple of years ago, I sunk into one of my worst depressions. And it's when I tried to get off Adderall and birth control at the same time. I assumed it had to, and I gained loads of weight, and my emotions were like this all over the place. And I was depressed, like suicidal depressed, and I didn't understand why. And I attached it to Adderall.
Mm.
Oh, it's because I'm going through Adderall withdrawals. And then I just got back on both Adderall and birth control. Never thought about it again. Fast forward to now, I finally decide to get off birth control because I was thinking of freezing my eggs. I get off birth control. I start getting acne on my face, specifically my chin and my neck. Like not acne, like effing acne
Yep.
cysts, like insane. Loads of acne on my chest, on my back. I gain a little over 10 pounds out of nowhere. Like I'm eating the same. I can't drop it. Like no matter what I'm doing, I'm practically trying to starve myself. It's not coming off. And my moods are all over the place. I feel everything a lot. And again, not thinking anything of it. I literally, the way I had to change the way I eat was annoying at first, to be fair. It took me over 10 months to lose the 10 pounds that I gained that no one explained to me. And again, everyone said, that's so weird. You gain weight when you got off birth control? Yeah, I thought it was weird too. Right, because I have PCOS. I don't know that yet. Then I go through egg retrieval and I'm producing loads of follicles. Follicles are the things that hold your eggs in them. And your eggs doesn't mean all your eggs are good, but when you have PCOS, you can produce too many. The thing with PCOS, some women have high estrogen and some women have high testosterone. I have, when the doctor told me is what I have is high estrogen. And I said, wow, does that mean I'm like extra feminine and attracting all the men? And he said, no, it means you gain weight and you're very like unstable emotionally. And I was like, oh, okay. Not what I was expecting. Cool. Okay. I literally was like, oh, I'm feminine. I'm in my feminine energy because I'm extra estrogen. And he's like, no, no. Yeah. So he's like, you about to something about developing diabetes from it and all these other issues. I was like, okay, cool. So I'll chill out with that. So I finally, 11 months in now, been been able to start to get rid of, maybe my hormones are going back to normal, but been able to kind of get rid of the back acne and the chest acne. I still get neck acne before I'm getting my period or when I'm stressed, which is obviously hormones. I even have like some, not scarring, but like those
pigmentations and stuff.
stains. Yeah, which I've never had before because I have pretty clear skin.
It looks clear
Now
right
I
now,
have
by the
that.
way. I would never know.
Thank you for saying that. No, it's
I still can't see it.
well, okay,
I
it's
believe
there.
you.
I'm not wearing makeup, but I put concealer on that
I believe you.
area just because, yeah. But I finally lost the weight. I had to change my diet. And also with all the having PCOS when you're going through freezing your eggs, that's another thing because I produced between 40 to 50 follicles in my stomach. So I had to scrape all
Ugh.
of that out. So I had no idea that I was going to feel the most pain post procedure versus leading up to it, like a lot of women that I know. So that was different. And then afterwards, I was feeling very hormonal. Again, I was like feeling suicidal and I was feeling like no one cares about me. No one loves me. I broke up with the guy I was dating in that moment. And from my doctor to other people from in the medical world, no one said that all the hormones I'm injecting, I could experience these emotions and maybe PCOS will make things worse because my estrogen levels are all over the place. No one said anything. When you Google it, it says you go back to work a day or two later after egg retrieval. So I'm thinking I'm going fucking crazy then it's me. It's my brain. There's something wrong with me. And then I finally looked up random Reddit chats where they talked about whether they have PCOS or not. They're like, I'm feeling suicidal. I just started crying randomly at lunch, but I'm really happy. Is everything, what's going on with me? And it's like, oh no, you're fine. I'm going through it as well. So I found solace or whatever the English word is, I forgot, but I found peace with random Reddit chats that helped me learn more about my PCOS, helped me learn more about the emotional stress that I was going to go through after egg retrieval. And these are the things with women that it seems that no one really focuses on. And whether it's postpartum depression after pregnancy, whether it's getting on birth control, getting off of it, it's almost like you'll just deal with it, or oh, she's just being a woman, she's being emotional. Maybe it's the birth control. Did you think about that? Maybe I have PCOS, or maybe you're a cunt,
or all three. Yeah.
So even right now, I don't know if I'm right now when we're recording this interview, I'm 3 weeks post egg retrieval. So even right now, I don't know if my estrogen levels are back to normal and if I'm more emotional or if I'm myself. Like I have no idea. I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy. So I got my period pretty early. I got my period when I don't even think I was 11, and my period never regulated ever. And I had gynecologists tell me that, oh, you're young. No, it's fine. You're young. You're young. Doesn't matter. It'll happen. It'll regulate. They never really looked into anything. And I became an adult. I didn't want to get on hormonal birth control anyway. So I had the copper IUD. So I didn't have,
IUD?
the copper one, the one without birth control, like without any hormones in it.
But those are really painful though.
They're
correct?
Not supposed to be. So I've got a fun story about that too. Anyway, I'm like, I'm in my early 20s. I'm working in TV, so yeah, everything's being documented. Out of nowhere, I gained over 70 pounds in a year. Eating the same, exercising the same. Uh, it was ridiculous and confusing, and I mean everything from like, am I pregnant, like what's happening. No one could tell me what was wrong. I went to 17 gynecologists, and literally I had a doctor tell me to my face that I must be lying. I must be lying about eating normally and exercising and living a fairly healthy lifestyle. I must be lying because look at you. And nobody cared to look into it properly. So now I think I'm going crazy. I'm throwing up, almost passing out every workout because I'm not getting the endorphins that I should be getting from working out. I feel physically ill when I'm eating things that should be decent for me. I have like no motivation to like, be, well, in general, fatigue, but no motivation to do the right things because none of it's working anyway. And someone eventually was like, why don't you try an endocrinologist? And so I was, oh, well, sure. I went to this endocrinologist. She finally, like, she was the only doctor that truly listened to me. And I was telling her about my family history. I was like, yeah, I've got diabetes in my family. My mom has has a hyperthyroid issue, which is kind of the opposite issue. And so, maybe it's my thyroid, maybe it's, she was like, everything that you're telling me points to PCOS. I have to, check with the blood tests and everything, but that's what it sounds like. I was like, what the fuck is that? I've never heard of that. What is that? And I, I, I just like had this relief because at least I know what it is. And it took a long time, and I was put on metformin, which slowly started to help. And I I go through, roller coasters where I'll be able to lose some of the weight, and then my hormones will spike, and I'll gain 20, pounds out of nowhere. And it's so frustrating, but she put me on the keto diet, and that changed my life. Things were finally starting to work and work properly and even out, and it was just so much better. I got pregnant, and I also, my journey with fertility, I thought it was going to take, a year or two, that I probably need help, that it would be something that would be, potentially harder than most because of PCOS. And we got pregnant within the first month, which was a huge blessing. And my pregnancy was healthy, but my pregnancy reset my hormones, which can happen with a really small percentage of women. But I like, knock on everything, my hormones are balanced. And PCOS never goes away. It can be dormant. So right now it's dormant, and I'm obviously doing everything I can to keep it that way. Um, but my journey was so rocky getting here. And if just one doctor, I feel like, just took a little bit more time to look into it, how much quicker would that have changed for me? It's and PCOS, like, as you know, can cause many different other health issues. It can cause ovarian cancer, it can cause breast cancer, it can lead to so many different things, and so many women have it and don't know, and could potentially end up with all of these other health problems later in life. It's infuriating that it's not. I mean, I think it's starting to be, but it's infuriating for that. For so long, it wasn't even on the table as a possibility. Like, why aren't gynecologists like looking into that being a possibility? I
Right.
don't understand.
You know what's crazy? I've been prescribed metformin
Mm,
before, and I didn't know why, and I didn't take it
mm,
because that's another thing. Even when they say words, they just throw it
they don't explain
around,
it.
and then no one explaining to you. Even when I found out during the egg retrieval stuff that I have PCOS, I was like, "Wait, someone mentioned that I have PCOS." I forget. I think a listener or someone mentioned to me that PCOS, and I said, wait, am I have so many eggs because I have PCOS? And the doctor was like, hey, yeah, you definitely do. Yeah, you have PCOS. Anyway, so, and I was like, huh? And then I had to Google about it to understand. And then that's when I started to connect the dots. And that's when I got to, and then the medication they were giving me kept lowering my estrogen
Mm, mm-hmm.
because some levels were high. And again, no one's telling me why. And I think I asked him, what kind of PCOS I have? Oh, you have high estrogen. So my brain had to connect the dots again, like, oh, that's what we are lowering my estrogen because I'm at risk now of OH. SS thing, which I think happened to me during my retrieval, which is why I couldn't sit or walk for 2-3 days.
Cool.
But again, yeah, super cool. But again, like no one, it wasn't explained to me. And by the way, that is one thing that I forget about some women with PCOS don't get their
Hmm.
periods, because someone else I interviewed, she has that issue and she has high
I have high
testosterone.
testosterone too.
Yes, that must be the difference, because that's when people now ask me about PCOS, they get surprised I get my period. I think that's the difference with the estrogen versus
Yeah.
testosterone. Because when I got off birth control, I still got my period again, but it was like it took months of very painful
Mm.
periods to finally. It was the most heavy flow I've ever had the first and 2 day. Like I've never. It was like switching every hour, which wasn't a thing because I'm iron
Mm.
deficient and anemic, so I literally have no blood left in me. But now my periods have gotten better, I think. Yeah, they have gotten better, but it's interesting. PCOS is definitely comes differently for everyone. I
Yeah.
mean, me complaining about 10 pounds and you saying that you gain while you're filming 70 pounds,
Yeah. Well,
that
and stress doesn't help.
and everyone's yeah, it makes it worse. And everyone's telling you that you're crazy. I mean, it's just crazy everything that goes on with our bodies,
Yeah.
and no one can tell you what's wrong or what's
Well,
going on.
metformin is supposed to regulate your the way that your body processes insulin, and it helps you ovulate on time, which is so it's like for me it was really good is to hopefully get my periods regulated. And this is the first time in my life that my periods have been regular ever. Um, the
Wow.
IUD. So when I first got my IUD,
Please.
dude,
I've read horror stories about it.
it was fucking awful. It was so excruciating. This guy did not care. So the gynecologist that I was going to, it was a Catholic hospital, and so they couldn't do it. They had to like request that a different different hospital for the insertion. And this doctor gave no shits. Like he was so rough. He just kind of like threw it up there, and it was awful. My cramps afterwards were terrible. Fast forward, I don't know. I don't even think I had it for a year. My boyfriend, who's now my husband, was like, I feel something that I shouldn't be feeling. And who knows how long it had been slipping for. But I stuck my hand up there and I felt like the bottom of it. So, not the strings, I felt the hard metal piece, which means that not only was it ineffective for who knows how long, but like so when your IUD is in there, if it moves at all, you're supposed to get like excruciating pain because it's this hard metal thing that's like inside your cervix. But because it slipped straight down, I didn't feel it until it was too late. So I go to the doctor. I go to this gynecologist, probably the worst gynecologist I had ever been to. And I was like, look, it's slipping. I know because I can feel it. I explained the whole situation. She was so awful to me. I was 20, 19, 19, 20, and I took a pregnancy test, and while I was waiting, she was explaining all these things, and she's like, if if you're pregnant, you're basically going to have a miscarriage either way, because if it's above your IUD, then it's really dangerous and we might have to surgically remove it if you continue with your pregnancy. And if it's below the IUD, well, we got to take that out, and most likely you'll just have a miscarriage. So these are our options. So let me just ask you. So this partner of yours, are is it like a quick thing, or is he like a real partner? Do you have like a good job? Do you think that this is something that is like even going to be okay in your lifestyle? She asked me all of these questions, basically insinuating that because of my age or however she wanted to judge me, that I wouldn't be properly prepared to be a mother. It went on for like maybe 30 minutes. And finally, I was like, okay, did the pregnancy test come back positive or negative?
Yeah, I was gonna be like, are you
And she was like,
pregnant?
oh, honey, it's negative. And I was like, what have we been doing for the last half hour? Like, was this like some sort of lesson that you were trying to teach me? Something that wasn't even my fault? She took it out. Everything was, it was what it was. And I left as quickly as possible. So after having my baby, like 4 months or so, it's okay. I need to get on birth control. And my then new gynecologist was like, okay, well, do you want to get back on the IUD? And I was like, well, it was excruciating the first time. I don't really think that I want to go through with that. And she's like, it was? I was like, yeah, it was terrible. I had the worst pain ever. She's like, it's not supposed to be painful. And she's like, yeah, it's like uncomfortable and you might feel like a little bit of sharp, pains and whatever, but it's not supposed to be that way. It's not supposed to be terrible. I was like, okay, well, that sucks, but let's try it. And she's talking to me and, she's got all of her equipment down there and she's opening me up and all that fun stuff. And I was like, okay, well, just let me know, right before. So she's like, it's already in. I'm just cutting the strings. And I was like,
What?
what? That's what it should have felt like the first time. What the hell was that guy doing? So women,
Did she numb you
nothing,
down there?
nothing.
Okay, then all I've
Horror
read
stories.
and Reddit, like horror stories where people are fainting
Mm-hmm.
afterwards. And first of all, I didn't even know it was metal. Like that's
Yeah, there's
insane
copper in it.
that they put something without numbing you down
It's
there.
like
Metal.
there's plastic parts to it, but there's like a copper thing running through it, and it's metal, and the bottom is like got a little metal thing. Yeah,
And my friend, she said, I go to a really good gynecologist, but he's expensive and he gives me a shot first so I get numbed and then he puts the IUD there. All of those stories, I was like, no, then I'm just not having sex.
but
Like,
here's the thing though: is like it lasts for like 7 to 10 years, and you don't have to think about anything. So it's amazing. It is amazing if like you're going to be okay with potentially having excruciating pain for a little bit. But other than that, like there's a couple things. If you're allergic to copper, then you're fucked. Like I've had friends not know that they were allergic to copper until they had the IUD, and like everything goes haywire because you got like copper in your coochie. So like it can be bad for some people, but if it works for you, you don't have to think about it. You don't think about taking a pill. You don't have to think about it fucking with your hormones or your mental state. Or it's definitely got a place. I love it. But man, yeah, it's women's health is like it's the wild wild west. It sucks.
yeah. Like when they found out that, they created birth control for men, but it was giving them side effects like sadness, depression, mood
Yeah,
swings. And that was too much, even though literally just the same side effects
yeah,
women
or
go
less.
through.
Yeah, yeah.
And when you bring it up, some men in the comments on the internet will be like, "Okay, so you want men to be depressed and suicidal? Do you know? Do you know how bad that is for us?" It's like, right?
Yeah,
No, of course I
we
know.
go through
We go through it
it.
too. None of us should go through it. How about that?
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, that's good that we both. You almost gave me a glimpse of hope. Obviously, pregnancy and going through the hormones for egg retrieval, completely two separate things. But it made me think for a second in my brain. I was kind of like, ding, ding, ding. I was like, oh my God, what if it re-triggered my body with the PCOS and maybe now I'll suffer
mm-hmm.
less from it?
Yeah,
Like I was wondering that in my head. Or it could be worse. Some women DM me and they
yeah.
said, took me months to go back to my normal emotional self and whatever other things. So I don't know what the
Yeah, I
answer
mean,
is. I
I
don't
didn't
know.
have. I feel like every woman to some degree gets postpartum depression. We all like think about postpartum depression as the extreme ways, which is like a lot of women like can't they feel like they can't connect to their baby, or they get suicidal, or they have like crazy. I mean, like postpartum depression gets really really serious, and that's what we think of. But there are so many different versions of postpartum depression. It looks different for everybody. And I didn't think that I had postpartum depression until like 6 months after. And I look back at those first 3 months and was like, yeah, like having a newborn is hard as fuck, regardless. But like, I definitely had a cloud over me for 3 months. Definitely did.
And I think I think that's so important to stress this more, not just for women to learn about our bodies and about this, for the partners to learn about this as
Yeah.
well and to be educated about it. Because did you know one of the highest rates for cheating is post
Hmm.
pregnancy? For men to cheat on their wives because the men feel unloved by their wives. They feel like they have to compete for attention with the baby, or that the woman is not paying attention to them, so they go look for the attention somewhere else, not understanding that a she just had a
Yeah.
baby. She's barely sleeping, taking care of the baby, but oh wait, there's another baby in the house. Obviously, I'm being sarcastic, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean. And I think that's why it's so important for the partners to also learn, so then the partners can be there. And like to learn that the high percentage of cheating happens after pregnancy was so insane for me to learn that, and so scary. But I think that's where the men need to be educated, that maybe for the first 3 months at least, it's not about
Yeah.
you. Maybe check in with your wife. It's not about whether or not you got your dick
Yeah.
sucked today. Check in with her feelings, because maybe she's going through postpartum depression. It's a real thing and she's not purposely
Right.
ignoring you. I think that's again where the communication comes in. And it's not, because obviously the way I'm speaking right now, some in a joking manner, so it sounds like I'm attacking, but it's more about the communication and to learning. So then you know, okay, my partner is not acting their usual self, something's off, how can we fix this so we can be happy
Yeah.
together, versus oh that person is just overreacting, or she's just ignoring me again, I'll go look for it somewhere
It's so
else.
ridiculous. But yeah, no, it really is just so ridiculous. I was like, Hudson, my husband, was very involved in everything. Like he wanted to know as much as I knew during my pregnancy, and postpartum, and he was such or is but was such a great partner in all of that, and I couldn't imagine not having that. It's it's a life-changing thing that happens. You feel completely different. No matter how prepared you are, your life is completely turned upside down. And then you add like sleep deprivation to that. And people go crazy on sleep deprivation regardless, whether there's a baby or not. Sleep deprivation does weird things to you. And we just figured out such a good system. And that was so lucky. And I just, yeah, like you say, not just like the sexual side of it, urge women to educate their partner, and for men and just partners in general to just kind of like suck it up and like do your own research, and like this is
Yeah.
it's yeah.
Because when I read the research about the cheating and the high percentage of how it happens post pregnancy, you know, it was crazy when I was reading the research and how to avoid it. It was discussing how the woman needs to remember that she needs to take care of her husband and show attention to the husband, not to just the baby. And that to me was so mind blowing, versus the man also needs to understand that she just had a
Yeah.
baby and she's going through changes. So I think it really is, instead of the pointing fingers, it's about the communication. Like, yeah, don't forget your husband exists, but also it's not just that, it's the postpartum depression. It's if your partner has a miscarriage, that's another thing that people neglect to discuss, that it's not just you can mourn for a month, you can mourn for a
Yeah.
year, or even after egg retrieval, IUD, realizing you're too hormonal, or birth control, whatever it is, all these things. I think we try so hard to be okay and we pretend to be okay and we don't give ourselves enough grace, again, where and we don't explain things to our
Right.
partner. But I think all these moments, we not only should our partners be kinder to ourselves and be more educated and learn, but we should also be kinder to ourselves, and we should also understand that whatever grief we are experiencing from whatever things we're going through, there's no handbook on exactly when you should stop
Yeah.
grieving. And I think we get too hard on ourselves on that part. Whether you're grieving about what happened to your body and postpartum or miscarriage and birth control and all that for a week, or whether you're grieving for 2 years, that's what you need to do. And sometimes we have all this sadness in ourselves and we don't know where to put it. And you have to find different places to put it. And it's going to take a little longer than a month or 2 months or a year to find where to put that sadness and how to turn into happiness and in the past. So I think it's really important to remember that there's no time limit when it comes to grief.
Absolutely. And I think also it's hard to ask for help. And I think especially with for women as this like putting our expectations on ourselves of what kind of mother we feel like we should be or need to be or want to be, asking for help is really it's difficult because you want to be able to do it all. You want to be enough for your spouse, for your partner, for your baby, for your children if you have more than one. It's such a there's a lot of pressure there, and I think a lot of it comes from putting our own pressure on ourselves. But it's yeah,
Literally. Or we, like you said, you didn't know you were going
yeah,
through it. Looking back now, the first 3 months. So sometimes we don't even know because we're not checking in with ourselves. When I hit a really bad depression that I discussed, I didn't know I was depressed until one night I went to sleep and I wrote some, I like writing, and I wrote some poem. And the next day I woke up and I read the poem, and it was the first time I was like, who is this girl? She sounds
mm-hmm.
suicidal. That's me. Like, I wrote these words. Oh my God, I'm not okay. And that's when I finally got to say it out loud. Called my mom. She was the first person, I confide in, and I felt, the shame and the embarrassment. And then you just, once you let it out, once you ask for help, the shame just disappears. It's so crazy, the shame that we feel about asking someone for help or saying I'm not okay. It's so shameful, and shame, I think, is one of the worst emotions we can ever experience because it's so hard to get out of that because it removes any hope away from us and it makes us feel so low. And it's like, oh, it's my little secret because I'm ashamed. And then once you let the secret out, it's crazy, it sets you
Yeah.
free.
Yeah, shame, you're right. And shame also prevents you from moving forward. It prevents you from doing the things that you love. It prevents you from lots of things. And we experience it in different ways all throughout our life. I think that's like one of the biggest things about mental health is like that journey never ends. Life events change you. You just even if it's not like a big life event, like you change and your journey to happiness. Maybe this sounds a little depressing in itself, but like that journey never stops. You always need to find what makes you happy and what brings you peace and what brings you harmony and it doesn't just someday just click and that's it. You find tools and resources to help you um, be in that headspace as much as possible. But I feel like some people think that like, yeah, there's just this one moment where you finally find this thing and then you're happy forever. That doesn't
Yeah.
exist. Um and it's important to always seek it out. But, yeah, like you said, grace.
You'll never be happy if you're constantly chasing the next
Yeah.
thing because you're constantly in competition. You constantly want
Yeah.
something new. I think if your goal is to be happy, whatever that definition is for you, then I think it's all about changing your perspective
Hmm.
and understanding when you just say three things you're thankful for every day, or just being thankful for things about yourself. Like, I'm thankful that I'm still able to, for example, I'm deaf in my left ear. So sometimes I think about, oh, I'm so thankful I still have hearing in my right ear. Because, like, what if I just, and so that's changing your perspective instead of saying, oh, great, I can't ever effing hear when people speak to me on this side, and it's so like during the pandemic, everyone with their mask stepping away from me, I couldn't hear people, and I felt embarrassed every time. I stopped leaving my house because the thought of just asking, people interacting with me and I can't hear them, and then I have to ask a million times to repeat themselves. And if they have an accent, then I feel embarrassed because I think, oh no, they think it's because their accent shit. And then, I'm getting in my head, I stopped leaving my house. I'm like, I just rather just not interact. Because then you say, so sorry, do you mind repeating that? I'm partially deaf. And it sounds like, people say, oh, I'm blind, I'm so
Right.
blind,
Yeah.
that's why. But, and it was the embarrassment. So you change your perspective. How lucky am I that at least I have my right ear that I can hear,
Yeah.
you know or I feel, it's such a quirky, unique thing about me that I'm deaf in my left ear. So that's how you slowly find your little happiness, just being thankful where you are right
Yeah.
now.
Absolutely. Thank you
All
for
right.
this. It's so pleasant talking to you. I know that like my listeners are just going to be thrilled to hear from you. And yeah, I could talk to you for hours. I really could. I mean, we have an hour and a half. We've been
Same.
we've been talking
Yeah.
for an hour and a half. But I really appreciate you taking this time. I love that we have so many things in
Thank
common.
you. Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed this too. I hope everyone else that's listening enjoyed our conversation
Yeah.
as well. Um, I feel like this conversation definitely was a great highlight for me to remember a lot of little things that I forgot to be thankful for, and it was a good reminder how far I've come. It was a good way for me to check in with myself, my mental health as I was speaking. I was like processing, okay, it's how what I'm feeling, what I'm going through. So this was really great, for now it's gonna set the tone for the rest of my day, which will be a happy day.
Aw, that makes me really happy. I think I have fallen more in love with you, Violetta, after this podcast. You're just so fun, but you are also just such an incredible person with so much to offer. And I'm so glad that our listeners get to experience you and everything that you are. And that's a wrap on another empowering episode of Women in the Nude. The conversation doesn't stop here. Stay connected with us by following us on Instagram, Women in the Nude Podcast, for behind the scenes sneak peeks, thought provoking quotes, and updates on upcoming episodes. Subscribe to us on YouTube for full length video podcasts, Sasha Pieterse, as well as visiting our website, Women in the Nude Podcast, for more resources and past episodes. Thank you for joining us on this naked journey to wellness and self-love. Remember, vulnerability is strength, and by sharing our stories, we empower each other. Special thanks to my amazing producer, Hudson Sheaffer, aka my hot husband, for making this podcast possible.